Hey guys, it's Henry from Gym01. So today I wanted to talk to you about return to play. So this is going to be a fairly pertinent subject because a lot of you are going to be getting back into the gym pretty soon. What that's going to look like we don't really know in terms of classes and the availability of different training modalities that we'll be able to engage with, but we're certainly going to be getting back to some sort of training. So a lot of you may not have been doing a great deal of training, or your training volume may have been reduced to what you would normally do. Some of you, this may not be the case, and you might have been training hard through lockdown because you've got access to your own gym, and maybe some of your household, have been up for getting involved in some jiu-jitsu or, kickboxing, things like that. But most of us have not been training as hard as we usually would be. So we're actually in a similar position to what we would be as if we were coming back from an injury. So we may well have stopped training altogether for a period of time if we were injured, or we may have had to reduce our training volume. And to avoid getting re-injured on our way back from injury, as we return to the levels of training that we would have previously done when we acquired the injury, we need to have some sort of system in place. So I'm sure you've all seen it. When we've had an injury, you've been off, you've come back, you've gone straight back into training as hard as you usually would do, and you pick up another injury. Or maybe you just had a bit of time off, and then you jump back into training as hard as you usually would do, and you get an injury. This is what we want to kind of avoid. Otherwise, we're going to see this wave of injuries occurring across the kind of population of people that come to Gym01. So we need some sort of system. And a really easy system is looking at your weekly training volume and intensity, but really we're just looking at the volume of the training, if you like. So a way we can monitor this is we can rate every session on an out of 10 scale for rate of perceived exertion. So this is how hard you felt the session was, essentially. So it might be that one of your sessions is just a light jog, and you might rate that as a 4 or a 5 out of 10. Or another session might be like a hard interval session or sparring, and you might rate that as a 9 or a 10 out of 10 because you tried as hard as you possibly could. So we'd look at all your sessions throughout the week and we'd rate them out of 10, and then we'd add them up and we'd say, this week I got a score of 60 and that was my total training volume. So that might be 10 sessions that were all rated a 6 out of 10, 6 sessions that were all rated a 10 out of 10. I mean, that's going to be a hard week. But you get the picture. We add it up, we get our total training volume. What we want to look at is what have been our weekly scores in our current situation. So in our lockdown situation, what have been our weekly scores? And then as we get back into training, we're going to look to add between 3 and 5 points to that weekly score. So rather than taking our score from what might have been a 60 up to 100, because we've added in all of these really hard sessions, we're now doing weight training, we're doing conditioning, we're doing 6 skill sessions every week, and suddenly our total training volume's just taken this sharp increase, and we're really increasing our chances of injury at that point. Rather than doing that, we look and we say, okay, I'm going to book in X amount of classes for this first week back, and I'm going to make sure that I monitor the intensity of what I do in those classes to this level throughout the week so that my score ends up at 65. Or probably the best thing to do when you go for your first week back is try and match what you've been doing throughout lockdown. So if it was 60 throughout lockdown, let's match it with a 60 at the end of the week for our classes and our strength and conditioning work. And then next week, we're going to take it up to 63, 64, 65. The week after that, we're going to edge it back up to, nearer the 70 mark. And we keep going until we feel like we've returned to our pre-COVID-19 training volume and intensity. And at that point, we'd then, we'd kind of level out. So this is just a way of kind of making sure that we edge our training back up. And it gives you a bit of responsibility as the person participating in the classes to kind of monitor your own intensity. If the class is particularly hard, we all know how we can kind of pull back a little bit. Or maybe if it's going to be a hard class and you're getting pushed and you have to, get involved with, making sure, pushing yourself in that class, maybe you're just not going to do a class the next day and you're going to monitor your training load like that. So we don't want loads of injuries when we get back to training. So really important that we have some sort of system for our return to play. So I hope that helps. If you've got any questions or you want to know anything else about return to play or anything about you're monitoring your training load and strength and conditioning, then just drop me a line. Otherwise, I'll see you in the gym.